Yes, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and did you? Is it on YouTube Live now? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we'll go ahead and recite the Namo Tassa and the three refuges for those who'd like to uh, do that. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. Welcome, friends, to this Wednesday evening Sutta class, and we're continuing our study of the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, getting near towards the end of it. We've been going over the contemplation of the Four Noble Truths, and last week we went over the truth of the arising of suffering. And in that exposition of the arising of suffering, we saw that the Buddha enumerated 60 places where suffering arises. And when the Buddha says suffering, it means craving. So really, suffering and craving are, go together, because there's not one without the other. So they can be used interchangeably. One reaches the end of craving, one reaches the end of suffering. So there's 60 places where craving can arise. And if you remember that from last week, they were the 6 senses and 10 aspects of the sensory cognition and mental activity connected with each of the 6 senses. And so I'm going to go over the cessation of suffering, the way the Buddha expounds it. And what, monks, is the noble truth of the cessation of suffering? It is the remainderless fading away and ceasing, the giving up, relinquishing, letting go, and rejecting of that same craving. So the same craving that gave rise to suffering is the giving up and the letting go of that same craving. And then the Buddha goes on to say, when this craving is abandoned, monks, where is it abandoned? When it ceases, where does it cease? Whatever in the world has a pleasant and agreeable nature, it is here that this craving is abandoned. When it is abandoned, it is here that it ceases when it ceases. And so this is basically just sort of the opposite of what the Buddha recited in the arising of suffering. And where does the agreeable, pleasant sensation arises? Right, it arises at those senses. And what in the world has a pleasant and agreeable nature? Okay, I'm not going to go over all of them again because hopefully you have remembered them. But anyway, he just repeats the phrase for each of the six senses. The mind has a pleasant and agreeable nature in the world. It is here that this craving is abandoned when it is abandoned. It is here that it ceases when it ceases. So the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, that's where craving and suffering arises, and that's also where it ceases. And so that's, again, the six senses are the first group of 10 places where suffering can cease. That means when you have eye mindfulness established on the eye, and when an object impinges on the eye, that craving can arise, and right there itself at that moment, if you have mindfulness and wisdom, it can cease. The craving can cease. And then the forms have a pleasant and agreeable nature in the world. It is here that this craving is abandoned. When it is abandoned, it is here that it ceases when it ceases. And so he goes again over each of the six senses. So it's right there. Either you're mindful of the ear, or you're mindful of the visible objects, or the sound, smells, taste, tactile sensations, and you abandon those, the attachment to those, or the clinging to those. Okay, so that is the second group of the six. And then the I consciousness has a pleasant and agreeable nature in the world. It is here that this craving is abandoned when it is abandoned. And it is here that it ceases when it ceases. So again, we have different opportunities to cease, to let go, depending on which of these particular senses or the aspect of it, whether it's the sense organ itself or it's the object that is coming through, the material vibrations that are coming through the senses, or the consciousness. Now, again, you can't really separate these things. This process happens so fast that it's not, most people are not going to be able to sort of think about it and separate them in that, in any observable way. But one can contemplate it like that. So the I consciousness, that's the third of those 10 groups. And then the contact, the eye contact, and the rest of the senses is agreeable and pleasurable in the world. And it is here that that craving can be abandoned by not dwelling on the contact, by not paying attention to it. But as soon as, normally when we see something or we hear something, immediately it's followed by some follow-up attention that we're giving it, and we're not able to, abandon it immediately because our mindfulness is, not up to par, not quick enough. So, yeah, the sense context is the fourth of those 10 groups. And then the feelings born of the contact. So dependent on contact arises feeling. Again, this is part of the Paticca Samuppada. And that the pleasurable, painful, or the neutral feelings that are arising depending on the contact. Now, the craving normally is because there is the pleasurable feeling arises with the contact. So that desire to want to prolong that experience arises. Or if it's a painful feeling arising, then the urge to want to push it away. Or if it's a neutral feeling normally is connected with the kind of ignorance. We don't really react to it too much. We don't really contemplate it very much. We just think, well, it's okay. You don't really like it or you don't dislike it, and it doesn't really grab your attention much. It usually doesn't create much kind of karmic reaction. And then dependent on the feeling, the perception arises. Now again, these are part of the aggregates. So the 5 aggregates and the 6 senses, all these things are occurring simultaneously. So that means depending on what we feel, that what we perceive it. Because it grabs our attention either with a pleasurable feeling, then of course, then we perceive it and then go on to think about it. Or if it's a painful feeling, we perceive it as being that painful object and then struggle to try to get away from it. So the perceptions of all those, even the perception of a mental formation. So you perceive, a painful memory, or you perceive a pleasant memory. And if you cling to that pleasant memory and hold on to it, then that's where the craving arises. But if you disengage from that, if you, detach from it, then that is the cessation of that craving in that particular moment. So again, that is I think that's lost the count, whether it's the 5th or 6th of those 10 groups. Then after the perception is the volition. Now the volition is really the sankhara. So actually we've already been covering this is the 5 aggregates up to this point. The Buddha's already mentioned the 5 aggregates in these 5 or 6 groups. So the material vibration is the form, And then there was the I consciousness, there was the consciousness aggregate, and then the feeling aggregate, the perception aggregate, and now the volition aggregate. So, a lot of people, they hear these different groups and, they kind of don't know how they really, fit together, in actual, meditation and so on. But they're all bound up very intimately together, aggregate senses and the practice of the meditation. So the volition in regarding to those, that means the reactions to them, the urges or the thoughts, the emotions that are triggered off. That means the accumulated volitions that we have done in the past. And then the current, based on the strength of those previous accumulated sankharas, then we reactivate them and create a new karma, a new volition in the present moment that's then strengthen those habits, either strengthens the attachment or strengthens the aversion. So that's where the restraint arises. Let's say if you have an urge to want to think about something or urge to follow the sound, it's here that this craving is abandoned, when it is abandoned, and it's here that it ceases when it ceases. So this is, a very good example. The way you practice this is that when you, especially, for like urges that arise when you're meditating, especially usually with painful feelings. So you see the urge to want to move because of a pain. And then right there and then, that craving to get away from it, that urge, you can act upon the urge, or you can relax around it and just observe the urge and see how it ceases. If you don't pay attention to the urge, you don't identify it as being me, this urge belongs to me. And, if you have that kind of developed mindfulness and wisdom, then that urge will cease, or you pay attention to something else and then you'll see that urge ceases. It's very, very powerful form of meditation. Just spend a good part of your meditation period, especially paying attention to these unpleasant, because there's so many of them, whether it's an unpleasant sound and that arises and an urge to want to, tell somebody to stop making noise, or the urge to move because of physical pain, or so on. There's too many to even try to describe. They're limitless. And that's really where we change our, how we weaken the sankharas, how we weaken the karma formations, is right there at the volition. One of the most important aspects of this training in the mindfulness is to see that urge, and you can either give into it and want to hold on to it, or the urge to get away or let go of it and just endure it, and not try to push the pain away, or not try to hold on to that desire to do something. And so that's where the craving ceases and the suffering ceases. Okay, then the next of the group is the craving for form. So now this craving for forms, craving has already been there, of course, in the desire for the perception, the desire for the feeling, and the desire for the volition. But, a craving could just pop into your mind. Let's say you're just sitting in meditation and, trying to concentrate, and all of a sudden, the idea of, oh, I wish I could have an ice cream now, especially this summer weather, right? Or ice cold drink, right? So, if you're meditating in a warm place, so you can see this craving arise for forms or the tastes. And then if you prolong it and think about it, then that's the arising of the craving and the suffering if you can't get it. Or you can apply your insight and not dwell on that craving, and the craving will cease. So it ceases right there, too, along with all of the other things that we've been mentioning. And then the next group is the thoughts about these sense objects. So the thought about forms, the thought about sounds, the thought about odors or tastes, tactile feelings. So this can include all kinds of sensual thoughts. We like to indulge in sensual thoughts sometimes, whether it's about food or other things. And people like to dwell on it, of course, because that's what people live for, actually, is the thinking and thinking about how we're going to satisfy our desires. And, like fantasies, people like to just daydream, don't you? You have a daydream sitting around and you just, or, thinking about your next trekking trip in the Himalayas. I used to do that. And, there's so many different types of thoughts we enjoy thinking about because it gives us some kind of pleasure. Or we could also enjoy thinking about harming somebody too, a negative thought as well. And then so that was the ninth of these groups of 10. And then the examination of form. So this means basically it's sort of like vitaka and vichara. It's the initial thought and then the continued thinking and examining of these objects that we either have a desire for or aversion for, or just sort of other like some papalapa, useless speech, people just talking about a lot of sort of neutral or nonsense things. So it's it's there that the craving is abandoned when it is abandoned, and it's here that it ceases when it ceases. So abandoning and ceasing also, these are like two phases of the process. Abandoning means kind of, letting go, and then the thing ceases if you don't paying attention to it. So first you kind of abandon it. That means you stop paying attention, but still it may linger, a couple microseconds or so, and then it'll cease. If you don't give it prolonged attention, then it ceases. So abandoning is the first thing. The first is the dispassion. There's a process involved in this letting go. First is the, dispassion, and then the abandoning. And the dispassion means, reflecting on the painful nature of being attached to a certain thing and then losing the desire for it, and then it's abandoning it, and then it ceases. So in those 60 places is where one can focus the attention on ceasing the craving or the suffering. And this, monks, is called the noble truth, or the cessation of suffering. Now, of course, in order to do any of these, mindfulness is essential. And because without mindfulness, then the mind will just keep on with its attachment, and the suffering will, and the attachment and the vexation or whatever it is connected with that object will continue. So without mindfulness, that is the arising of the suffering. You're unmindful of all these different places where the suffering is arising, because people, the average person thinks that most of the objects are sources of pleasure. So they don't have the Dhamma sort of understanding that actually what they consider to be pleasurable. It may be pleasurable and give some pleasurable feeling, but again, the pleasurable feeling is impermanent, and only when that object is continuing to give the pleasurable feeling, then you like to think about it and attach to the feelings and examine them. But because of impermanence, the things that stimulated those sense contacts ceases, and then quite often the opposite arises. So it's very powerful when you examine these different things. A lot of people say, "Oh, that's too much to remember," Yeah, but the reason why, because people haven't understood it and haven't really examined it. That's why they keep on staying attached to things, and then they then keep repeating the kind of habits that they're hoping that they want to overcome. But people want to overcome a lot of habits, but they continue to do things that keep those habits strong. Like they might think, well, like for the 5 precepts, for example. So a person might, we undertake the 5 precepts, and say, okay, I won't, kill any living beings, or the rest of them, tell lies and steal, and those are like the big aspects of that. But there's lesser aspects that people will still indulge in. Like they say, okay, I won't kill anything, but I'll maybe kick the dog or abuse the people of, short of killing them, they might harm them in different ways, or harm them by speech and so on. So, even though somebody wants to prevent the killing, if they partake of these other things, then you never know when, you might actually break the precept. And the same with the other, precepts, like indulging in alcohol. Okay, you might say, okay, I won't get drunk, because some people interpret the precept, to abstain from, drinks and drugs causing heedlessness. Well, I'll drink it, but I won't get heedless. Well, it may be difficult, but so one may refrain from doing it, but one may still, want to think about it and so on, which then could cause you to lose your awareness and then eventually indulge, and then something might happen, like you get drunk and do something foolish. And we hear this all the time, right? Or on drugs. In the same way with any of the other precepts, indulging in sexual misconduct. So that's especially true with the precepts. And, for those who are following the 5 precepts, to see how, the eye, the ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, and then the forms that contact the eye, and the consciousness that arises, the feelings, the perceptions, the craving, the thoughts, the examination. And so you can see how it begins innocently enough, but then it ends with that thinking and examination, which eventually then results in some kind of, action. So, especially with and that's why, contemplating these various things and seeing how the impact, what kind of impact it has on you, just the feeling, kind of feeling that has on you. What kind of does the perception? The feeling is one thing, but the perception is how we actually view that object, and that's when the stronger types of lust and desire arise. When we focus on that perception, and then that triggers off the thoughts about it. So anyway, so there's lots of different places. The Buddha has given us 60 different places where we can try to, overcome that, the sensory attraction. So now I would like to, so again, yeah. So the most important part is, again, the mindfulness and the concentration and the wisdom. Of course, we're going to talk about these next week in the path leading to the cessation of suffering, the 4th Noble Truth. But really, it's the cultivation of, well, also the sila, and then the mindfulness, the concentration, and the wisdom. All of these is the observance of the sila is kind of the physical kind of restraint, and then the mental restraint comes with mindfulness, and then concentration. Because the more you get concentrated, then the less your thoughts proliferate and thinking about different things. And then the wisdom, we employ the wisdom to help examine and think about the harmful consequences or the impermanent and kind of non-self nature of the consciousness and the objects themselves. Okay, so as I mentioned, next week we'll go over the Noble Eightfold Path, and then toward the end of the sutra, then there's some conclusion to that too. I would like to open it up to see if there's any questions that any of you may have. I don't see any chats in the chat room, but give you a few minutes to write the chat, or if somebody wants to unmute themselves and just ask a question. And you can also do that.
Bhante, there is one question in the chat box.
Yes, I'm seeing that now. Okay. It says external objects come in contact with the five senses to create feelings, perceptions, volitional formations, and consciousness. What two things come into contact in the case of mind objects? How do we prevent this contact to break the paticca samuppada? Well, the external objects, yes, come into contact with the five physical senses. But the contact, the mind contact, comes from the mental phenomena. So the uh, thoughts and memories, especially, that arise when you meditate. You know, you've all had the experience, right? You're meditating, trying to focus on your breathing or, the body. But then, out of nowhere, a thought just pops into your mind, right? A thought about something. So that is a mind object. So, and then the consciousness is attracted to that mind object. So the contact is uh, working in the same way. There's the mind base, and then the thought or the memory or an urge, some mental activity, phenomena. Maybe it's a vision that arises, or you see a vision or something. And then the consciousness of it. And so it's the same mindfulness that you apply to detecting a sound. The moment the sound is coming through, you're aware of, hearing is arising, or seeing, smelling, tasting, or a touch phenomena. The same way a thought arises. Now, thoughts, are a little bit harder to detect because the senses, the physical senses, depending on how strong they are, they jolt us more. But the mind objects too, they can arise very quickly. So it's again, it's the mindfulness, is that the contact, the nama rupa, depending on the six senses, or nama rupa and the six senses, depending on the six senses arises the contact. So you have to have the and when you are have gained some concentration, then when the mind is more quiet, then it's easier to see the thought because it's not so distracted by other things. So, when before you've obtained the jhana, when the thoughts are kind of subside, especially like excess concentration, momentary concentration, you're able to see a lot of different thoughts coming and going. I mean, you'd be amazed at how many thoughts you can kind of observe moving through the back of your mind. You say, you are connected to the breathing. So let's say you're able to have some concentration on the breathing or the sitting and breathing and feeling the sensations of the body and breathing. But at the same time, in the back of the mind, there's like you can perceive a steady stream of fragmented thoughts or urges kind of just, coming and going and very quickly. if you have a good concentration. If and that connection to the breathing or the body helps keeps the mind from getting lost into those thoughts. See, that's the main thing, because we don't have any anchor, we don't have any object of concentration. Our mind easily gets pulled away and into various thoughts and urges. But when you develop some connection to the breathing or the body, then, because part of your attention is here, when you start to think, you see it more clearly, and then you can cut it off. And the stronger you're concentrated and have that constant connection, like if you're in the first jhana, then basically you don't have any wandering thoughts. You have the thought about your meditation subject only, such as just sitting, breathing, or if you're practicing, metta, but not other type of things. Okay, so. So, the depending on the six senses arises contact, then the feeling. And then depending on feeling arises a craving. So right there is where we have to have that, to break that link of the paticca samuppada. At either of those 60 places that the Buddha mentioned. Okay. This next question. Do you always get feelings, cravings through your six senses due to sankhara? Does it mean that you get connected with places based on your past karma? Yes. The short answer is yes. Feelings and cravings are the result of the way that we've reacted to things in the past. So when we feel similar things again, then these habits just arise again. And then if we react to them again, then they are re-strengthened, and then they go back in the unconscious to be there again when a similar thing happens again. And we keep on just repeating the same ways of acting and thinking towards similar objects until we have established our mindfulness and concentration to enough that we can break the volition in regarding of those things and the thinking about those things. Yeah, and the more we seek out the same kind of people, the same kind of places, then there's always going to be that craving is always being re-strengthened to come up, whenever any similar thing reminds us of that. Are sensual thoughts always based on sankhara, past karmic effects? Yes. The sensual thoughts are sankharas. And the more we indulge in them, the more we strengthen them. And the more we can let go of them, right there, that's where the craving arises. And then that's also right where it ceases. When that thought arises, it can continue there, or if you have mindfulness and wisdom, it can also cease right there. And that's really where the practice of Dhamma is. It's really about the sankhara. Are you going to keep strengthening that sankhara, or are you going to weaken the effects of the sankhara? Now, if it's a good sankhara, like getting up early to meditate every morning, okay, that's something you want to strengthen. That's part of the right effort, right? So the good sankharas that help us to meditate and to do other wholesome actions and so on, these are the ones we want to strengthen. But the ones that want us to just be lazy and not practice, or other things, those are the ones we try to overcome. This is in relation to Paticca Samuppada. How can you have sensual thoughts, feelings, without getting connected with Nama Rupa? Well, we always have Nama Rupa with us. I mean, ever since you were born, you have Nama Rupa with you. And so that's always with us. I mean, part of the Paticca Samuppada, we have with us all the time, and we can't do anything about it. So we have the ignorance that we carried over, we have the volitional formations, we have the consciousness, we have the Nama Rupa, we have the six senses. The six senses develop in the womb and the baby is born, and then we have contact. Those things are a given. You can't do anything about those. And even feeling, you can't really do much about the feeling. The feeling is going to arise. But the craving, if you have very sharp mindfulness and that attention on the feeling, right then you can either cling on to that pleasurable feeling and then repeat the thoughts and the craving, or you can contemplate it and detach from that pleasurable or painful feeling and let it cease, or the ensuing thoughts will cease about it. Because things only grow in our mind when we keep giving it attention. That's why when our attention is always changing, we can't get attached to anything, because things are just arising and vanishing, and we're flowing. Our mindfulness is kind of just flowing with each moment of arising and vanishing. And therefore, our mind doesn't stay enough on any particular sense contact, because there's always something coming through the senses if we're well concentrated. You can feel, hundreds of contacts arising and vanishing in the space of just a few seconds, if you have a really good concentration and awareness. And that way, the mind doesn't have time to cling on to any particular one, because you can't notice two things at the same time. So you let that go, and you pay attention to another thing, but that vanishes, and another, and another, and another, because they're all arising right there under that lens of concentrated awareness. So anyway, those sensual thoughts definitely are connected with Nama Rupa, because usually it's about one of the thinking about the pleasurable aspect of one of the six senses. Whether it's a visible form, or smell, taste, touch, tactile sensation, and thought. Okay, so looks like that's the end of the chat questions. So I think we will take a short break, as we normally do, and then come back to have a few yoga stretches and then our meditation. Okay? See you back in a few moments. Go back more so. Okay. Is this working? Okay, friends. So let's try to stand straight. Just relax your shoulders. Just feel the arms and hands hanging at the side. Just feel the feet pressing the floor. Try to mentally feel an outline of the standing body. Then begin some deep, slow breathing. Take a few seconds to expand the abdomen, rib cage, and upper chest. Hold the air in the lungs for 2 or 3 seconds. And try to feel the last bit of air go out of the lungs on the out breath. Put the clock so I can see. Just take a few deep, slow breaths like that, cultivating this basic mindfulness of breathing in, letting go of the past and future. And breathing out, standing here and now. And breathing in, letting go of the past and future. And breathing out, standing here and now. And breathing in, feeling the whole body. And breathing out, feeling the whole body. And now we'll begin the movements coordinated with the breathing. So in the next in breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, stretch the head back, turn the palms up, straighten the arms, look up at the back of your hands, stretch upward. On the out breath, turn the palms down and touch the top of the head. Again, in breath, palms up, straighten the arms, stretch the head back, also bend backwards a little. Feel the sensation. Out breath, touch the top of the head. Third time, hold the upward stretch longer. Bend back a little more. Feel the sensation. Release the fingers, the out breath, arms back to the sides. Feel those sensations. Relax. Don't let the mind wander. Feel the feet pressing the floor. Feel the increased pulsations, sensation. Just letting go of your thought. Even while practicing the yoga in this way, you can also just contemplate, the sensations coming through the body or any thoughts about them. And the next in breath, push up on the toes and raise the arms over the head in this way, facing the hands toward each other and stretch. Out breath, come back down. Use the breath to help lift up the body. In breath. Stretch. Out. in. Out. Relax. Just keep the mind focused in the body. Just remember standing, standing, standing. The present moment. Just letting the thoughts come and go in the back of the mind. Keep the sensations of the body in the front of the awareness. On the next in-breath, we'll do the knee bending. On the in-breath, you can lift up on the toes and raise the arms up front for balance. On the out-breath, bend the knees and lower down. Position if you can. In-breath up. All the way up on the toes. Out-breath. In. On the out-breath, relax. Feel the increased heartbeat. Remember standing, standing. Feeling all the sensations, feeling arising. Okay, next we'll do the side bending using both arms. On the in-breath, both arms up. You keep the fingers on the arms straight, close to the head. On the out-breath, bend over the right side. You keep the arms parallel to each other like railroad track. In-breath, lift up. And the other side, out-breath. In. Then to the right, out-breath. Feel the stretch in the side. In-breath. Out. In. Once more to each side, out. The out breath, lower the arms, relax. Keep feeling the body. material vibrations, feelings, and perceptions, thought. You can now spread the legs apart, at least 3 feet, wider the better. And place the hands together at the chest. In breath, hands over the head. Out breath, lower the hands to the chest and bend the knees, lowering the body down. Try to keep the back upright. Feel the stretch in the hips and knees. In breath all the way up. Out. In. Out. Out breath. Feel each foot pressing the floor. Feel the hands touching the sides. Feel the clothing touching the skin on different places. Is this body exactly as it is, here and now? Present moment awareness, grounded in the body. The mind is grounded in the body, feeling sensation. More easily, clearly see thoughts that are trying to pull you out. You can now hold the arms out. We'll do the twisting from side to side. And breathe in. On the out breath, twist to the right. Keep the eyes focused on the hand going back. In breath, back to the front. You let the feet turn with the body and then to the other side with the next out breath. In breath, front. Just continue that, alternating sides with the breathing. Out breath. In. Out. In. Once more to each side, out breath. And relax. Just keep feeling the body. Don't give the mind time to wander in thoughts. The billions of cellular vibrations are always right there in the body, inviting you to feel them. Stay grounded in the present moment. Now we'll do the forward and backward bending. Let the hands touch the front of your legs. Still keeping the legs spread apart. Breathe in. On an out breath, bend forward. Keep the head up, looking out straight ahead. Let the hands come to the knees. The arms straight, the legs straight. Try to flatten the spine. Get the hump out of the spine. In breath, lift up. Move the hands on behind under the buttocks for support. Let the head go back and gently bend backwards on the out breath. Not too far the first time. Keep the eyes open. Feel the sensation. In breath, lift up. And on the out breath, the hands come down below the knees. Still keep the head up. Feel the stretch in the back of the leg. In breath, lift up. Again, the back bend, out breath. Try to bend back a little more. Be careful. In breath, lift up. The third time, let the hands come down as far as you can toward the feet and hold that position longer and keep the legs straight. Feel the stretch in the back of the legs, hamstring muscle. And in breath, lift up. And once more, the back bend. Be careful. In breath. And the out breath, just relax. Feel the whole body. Feel that increased life force, activated life force, pulsation. Any aches or pain. Feel the feet pressing the floor. Arms and hands at the side. Head balanced on top. Just this body exactly as it is here and now. Okay, now bring the legs and the feet back together, just a few inches apart. Just stand straight. One last exercise, the head turning to loosen up the neck vertebrae. On an in-breath, turn the head to the right. Try to look over your right shoulder. out breath, turn the head 180 degrees to the left. Look over the left shoulder. If you have a stiff neck, just be careful. In breath back to the right. Concentrate into the neck vertebrae. Out breath left. In breath right. Out breath left. On the in breath, let the head stop in the center. Feel the whole body vibrating, pulsating, with activated life force, oxygenated blood, electrical nervous system energy. Standing, standing, standing. Okay, so we'll come back to our seats for the sitting meditation. Okay, friends, so just get comfortable in your meditation seat. Try to align the back and spine with the back of the head. Try to establish the natural inward curve of the lower lumbar spine that helps us support the upper body. Just gently close the eyes. Just bring the attention down to feel where the buttocks press the seat. Just focus the attention, the weight of the body pressing the floor. Try to feel the right and the left buttock pressing the seat. And mentally feel the way the legs are bent underneath and the feet pressing the floor where the feet are crossed. And feel the sensations in your heels and toes. Just feel that solid, grounded connection of the body to the seat or floor. Now feel your hands and fingers touching. They touch together or where they touch your legs. Try to feel the outline of your thumbs or other fingers. You feel the subtle pulsations, tingling sensation in the hands and fingers. And just remember that you're sitting, the present moment of the body. You feel the weight of the arms hanging from the shoulders. Relax the shoulders. And feel where the clothing touches the skin of the shoulders, or arms or chest. Feel the movement of the breathing in the chest. Now feel the head balanced on top of the neck. Just feel the face, the sensations on the face. Sort of imagine the skin stretched over the front of the skull. All those sensations in the forehead, the eyes, the nose, the lips, and the chin. And feel the tongue laying in the mouth. where the tongue may touch some teeth, or the inside of the mouth. And feel in the back of the throat any urge to swallow or cough. And now feel the eyes resting in the socket, and the eyelids stretched over the eyeball. Just relax the eyes, try to feel the subtle eye movement, and the blood pulsing in the capillaries of the eyes or eyelids. Sort of just gazing or watching the eyes sitting there in your head. Awareness is like your own inbuilt video camera that can observe and feel the sensations in the body. And open the awareness to kind of feel the outline of the whole body. Feel the shoulders, arms, torso, hands, legs, buttocks, feet. Just the general kind of outline of the sitting posture. Using the video camera of awareness. And just be aware of sitting, sitting, sitting. It's the present moment, this body. And then begin taking some deep, slow breaths again, like during the yoga. Really feel the expanding of the abdomen, rib cage, and chest. Hold the air in the lungs a few seconds. And feel that pause, the oxygenation of the blood. And feel the relaxing contraction of the out breath. Try to feel the last bit of air go out of the lung. And take a few more deep, slow breaths like that, cultivating this basic mindfulness, present moment mindfulness, of breathing in, letting go of the past and future, and breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now we're going to count the breaths from 1 to 10 to try to develop a more continuous concentration. Try to take some slightly deeper breaths to help stay grounded in the body. So with the next expanding in breath, mentally count to 1. Feel the brief pause. With the contracting out breath, also count to 1. The next expanding in breath, 2. Contracting out breath, 2. In breath, 3. Out breath, 3. In breath, 4. Out breath, 4. In breath, 5. Out breath, 5. In breath, 6. Out breath, 6. In breath, 7. Out breath, 7. In breath, 8. Out breath, 8. In breath, 9. Out breath, 9. In breath, 10. Out breath, 10. Now discontinue the counting. Discontinue any controlled breathing. Just let the breathing return to its shorter, uncontrolled, irregular rhythm. Continue to follow, to feel it with mindful attention. Just try to feel the 4 phases of each breath, expanding in breath and the brief pause, the contracting out breath and the brief pause. Over and over and over and over again. Just knowing when the breath is coming in and knowing when the breath is going out. Know it by feeling it. Depending on the contact arises the feeling. And then the perception. You perceive that it's an in-breath. You perceive that it's an out-breath. You perceive the sitting posture. In between the breaths, feel the outline of the posture. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Just cultivating this vitaka, vichara, the present moment. This breathing body. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Just be aware how the in-breath arises, lasts a few moments and ceases. And the out-breath begins, lasts a moment or two and ceases. Just tuning into the flow of impermanence, starting with the breathing. Just feel all the little subtle sensations of each breath. Sensations of the clothing rubbing against the stomach, rib cage, or chest. Be alert for thoughts sneaking up into the mind, thoughts of any sensual pleasure, aversion. You can either dwell on those thoughts or you can cease them there and then. The mind is calm enough. Just try to be aware of those 5 aggregate. Contemplate the material sensations, the pleasant or painful feelings arising from the contacts. perception, any volitions or thoughts regarding them. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Sensations come and go. Thoughts come and go. Pleasant, painful sensations come and go. Desires, aversions come and go. These are all just a continuous flow of the five aggregates and impermanent through this body and mind. Just maintaining that continuous present moment connection to the breathing body. This breathing body is the anchor to the present moment awareness. It allows you to more clearly see your feelings and thoughts as they just arise, change, and vanish through this awareness. There's too many thoughts, so the mind is a little drowsy. Go back and take a few deep, slow breaths. help stay grounded and awake in the breathing body. Create that space of awareness. More clearly see the flow of impermanence. Stay awake, alert, moment by moment, breath by breath. Alert to the flow of impermanence, arising, changing, vanishing, 5 aggregates, contacts, feelings, perceptions, volition. What feeling or perceptions or thoughts thoughts arise based on that sound contact. Sabbe sankhara anicchati yada panyaya pasati atanibindati dukhi esamaggo visuddhiya dukkha pattaca nidukkha bhayapattaca nibbaya sukha pattaca nisukha ontu sabbe pipanino. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and the world are impermanent. When one sees this with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to purity, to freedom. And may the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. In this way, may all beings live with mindfulness and wisdom. Thus spoke the Buddha. Now to finish this meditation, I invite you to chant the word sadhu 3 times slowly with a long out breath. You can place the hands at the chest if you like, and breathe in. Sadhu. 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 And place the hands at the edge of the knees. Take one more deep breath. On the in-breath, stretch the head back, pull against the hands, fix to the knees, arch your spine. Feel the sensation and lift the head up on an in-breath, and on the out-breath, press the chin to the top of the chest to stretch the neck vertebrae. And lift the head up level on an in-breath. And relax on the out-breath. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends, so this brings our Wednesday evening Dhamma discussion and Sutta discussion and meditation to an end. And so I would suggest that during the next week, try to remember these 60 places where suffering can cease or be abandoned and cease, whichever ones kind of take your attention or you can clearly see them. Different ones we have more attachment to. Okay, so wish you all the best. You keep up your meditation practice.
Thank you, Bhante.
You're
Thank
all
Thank you, Bhante.
very welcome.
Namo Buddhaya Bhante.
Namo Buddhaya. Mindfulness today keeps dukkha
Namo
away.
Buddhaya.
Sutta